And a very good evening to you, and welcome to this evening's edition of Politics 101. I'm David Hines, of course, coming to you from Buxton, Guyana, shifting the geographical location sometimes. Good to be on native soil. Always good. Home. There's always home is always home. Um, and as we say, nobody go run me. Nobody go run me from where me come from. Tonight it's our speaking truth to power. Speaking truth to power. You know, we've been talking a lot about power recently. We've been talking about power sharing. We've been talking about people abusing power. We've been talking a lot about the issue of power. And one of the things that we know that we have to deal with in our community is to get our people to understand power. Because I think sometimes we misunderstand what is power. And if we misunderstand what is power, we will misunderstand everything that goes with power. We will misunderstand abuse of power. We will misunderstand power sharing. We will misunderstand who is powerful and who is powerless. We've got to understand what power is. And we are going to spend a lot of time talking about power. That is why on Thursday nights, we speak truth to power. What is truth? What is truth? There's no single truth. Of course, I agree. You know, truth is your truth, my truth. We determine what is truth from our own experiences. The person looking out from inside sees outside, and the person looking in from outside sees inside. Every man, as old people say, kisses his wife differently, and I suppose they would have meant every woman kisses her husband differently. We must not be afraid of diversity. So we have diversity of truth. We tell our truth from our experience. Sometimes people try to impose truth on us. And that's where we go wrong, in the sense that we are trying to insert ourselves in somebody else's truth. The fact of the matter is, our story arises from our experiences, and we have had different experiences. And so our truth comes out of our experience. We can have a universal truth, but that universal truth has to be a convergence of all our different truths, There is no Guyanese truth in that sense. The Guyanese truth is really the convergence of the truths of the different Guyanese, the different social groups, the different sexes, the different ethnic groups. We all bring our different truths in a way that we can put it together. The challenge for a country like ours is how we bring our respective truths together into a Guyanese truth. And we've been grappling with that forever. Every time we think that we have made it, something happens. You know, you roll a stone up the hill, and when you're almost there, a force pushes it down back. You know, those of us who are supporters of the coalition felt that between 2015 and 2020, we had arrived at a Guyana that we could be comfortable with. What we forgot is that there are other Guyanese who were uncomfortable with the coalition. And then, you know, the coalition was thrown out of office and the PPP came to office, and Indian Guyanese, of course, think that they have arrived again at their sense of what Guyana can be and should be. When they look around what has happened the last 2 years, they see their own truth. They see their own sense of what Guyana can be. They don't want to rock the boat. And those of us who thought that we saw our truth from 15 the 2015 to 2020, we do not recognize that other truth. And so we go on and on. How can we arrive at a Guyana where we are all comfortable with? That has been our quest, that has been our struggle. It must continue to be our struggle. If you witness for one, that's not the issue. It is what you're witnessing for one for. If you're witnessing for one so that we can join with others, so that we can achieve our national objective, then nothing is wrong with witnessing for one. I suppose we are very quick in our society to point fingers. We're very quick to subtract, not add. We are very quick to become impatient. Quick to become impatient. A little bit of redundancy there, but we can live with that. We become impatient sometimes with each other too quickly. Even among the ethnic groups, you got Indian Muslims, Indian Hindus, Indian Christians. Among Africans, we have tongue African, country African. We have upper class, we have lower class Africans. Some of us trace our ancestry back to the Congo. Some of us trace our ancestry back to the Zulus and the Coromantese and so on. There is no settled oneness in any of our ethnic groups. There are Amerindian brothers and sisters. There are Arawaks and Wapisianas and Waiwais and so forth. So our objective is, how do we grapple with diversity? And sometimes we become impatient with diversity. And so that is why we want to speak truth to power. Because we want to give the different dimensions of who we are a chance to be expounded. Disagreement must not always mean cutting off. We on this side of the political aisle, more than the other side, you don't hear it too much on the other side, but you hear it more on our side. What do so-and-so bring to the table? What do so-and-so bring to the table? First of all, we're assuming that there is a table, and second, we're assuming that that table belongs to some section of our community. I've lived long enough in Guyana and been long enough in politics to know that the political person in Guyana is a very complex person. That political person has a party preference. But the party preference may be different from the cultural preference. And the cultural preference may be different from the religious preference. So we have PNC member who is Catholic, or a PNC member who is Anglican, or a PNC member who's Pentecostal, or a PNC member who's Faithist. And that PNC member who's Anglican may be into African culture, while the PNC member who is Catholic may be less into African culture. What I'm saying is, you take the average Indian person, or the average African person, or the average Amerindian person, Chinese, Portuguese, and you think that what you're looking at is a monolith. Whereas that person represents the different tendencies, political tendency. When I was growing up, there were, the big people in my village, there were more Burnhamites and Quianites. They loved Burnham for political power. They loved Quiana for cultural power. And how do you cut them in half? They're one person. One person. And sometimes we don't understand We don't understand the complexity, the diversity in our being. In our being. We have Black conservatives, we have Indian radicals. We have Indian conservatives, we have Black radicals. We have Black moderates, we have Indian moderates. So we continue to speak truth to power because we want to say, just as we are diverse, power is diverse. And we've got to understand power. And more and more, as we are into this power sharing debate, I'm realizing that a lot of our people don't understand what power is. So, you know, people instinctively say, well, power sharing don't work. And when you get down to it, what they don't is understand power. This morning I said, for example, the PPP has 100% of executive power, but they only got 51% of the vote, which means that 49% of the power they have belong to those who are outside. It belongs to the supporters. The PPP is what? They are squatting on opposition power. Yet opposition supporters are saying, I don't want power sharing, I don't want it work. What they in fact saying is that I don't want the 49% of the power. If you can't give me 100, if you can't give me 49 plus the Indians 51, I don't want nothing. That is in effect what we are saying. And we are saying that because we really don't understand power and how it works. We think we do, but we really don't. All right, that's my little introduction tonight. Tonight, who's going to be talking truth to power? James Bond. It's a name that needs no introduction. He's been in the trenches, a young man, relatively speaking. He has been in the trenches as an attorney, as a political person. He has run for the top leadership in his party, the People's National Congress, and laterally, he has been a business person. And again, I talk about the diversity. The Black businessman does not necessarily act in the same way as the Black political person. And the Black political person does not necessarily act in the same way as the Black legal practitioner. So here you have somebody like James Bond who got three, and he has to juggle them. And sometimes in the process of juggling them, because how you act as a businessman is not how you act as a political activist. But man shall not live by bread alone. A man shall not live by the Holy Ghost alone. So we got, you know, Teacher George Young, he had a way when he see you're into politics, he call you. He said, "Boy, come. We see you like politics." Yes, Teacher George. He said, "Oh, Jesus Christ, be careful." What says Teacher George? He said, when you're there politics, you have a part your stomach in. Well, I don't know what philosophy Teacher George is talking about. He said, part for famine and part for eat. And he's talking about the diversity. That when you in politics, the nastiness you have for famine, but you're also a human being who has to eat. You know, we can't cut ourselves into we are all of who we are. So here's a young man who's been an attorney at law. He has been a political person, and he has been a business person. And I don't know which part we can cut out and say that is the business put on one side, which part is the attorney put on one side, which part is the politician put on one side. They're all inveighing him together, and we have to understand our people in their totality. That's the message here tonight I want to leave with you all. You know what I mean? We tend to want to isolate part of somebody and say, well, dicey, you know? And I suppose sometimes we have to do that. But it's dangerous to do that as a permanent thing. James Bond is my guest tonight, and he will be talking truth to power. Brother James.
Hi, Dr. Hines. Dr. Hines, it's a pleasure, man. I enjoyed your introduction, sir.
Thank
I
you very
enjoyed
much. I haven't
I
been by
enjoyed
you.
your introduction.
I haven't been by you a little while. I have to tell the crowd that the audience that I do hang out sometimes, and I
And
do
I mu-
call my brother James in
and
Melanie.
I must tell the audience, that when you first came, I was honored. I was completely honored because you're someone who I respect in the political world, in the political arena. You're a person I have the greatest of respects for as an analyst of our political times, and to see you giving that support. Sometimes you need that energy, and when you came there, you and the other gentlemen, I don't wish to call their names except they call their own names.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
I was
yeah.
extremely honored that you came there, and you didn't come just once. You came there on more than one occasion, and thank you for that support all the time, Dr. Himes. That's why
Thank
right
you.
away, when the guy said, I don't do these interviews and that kind of thing. When the guy says he wanted me on, I said right away, without hesitation, confirmed.
Yeah. Um, let me ask you this question, which is you may be surprised that I'm starting there. You're a young man. You went to President's College, one of the best schools. You became a lawyer, which is our parents always want us to be lawyers and doctors. They didn't care what else, all right? You got into politics. But then laterally, as I said, you got into business. And I'm asking you this question because you know the cliche in our society, black man can do business. Black people are not natural business people. But here you are, well, you're an attorney. I suppose you were doing well as an attorney. You got into the political arena, you became well known, but you decided to go into business. Talk me through that process. How
It
did
was a
it
very
unfold?
it was a very simple process, and I am very passionate, as most persons know. But whatever I do it with a passion, and I like cigars, I like cognac, and I had this idea on a trip to Cuba to actually come back to Guyana and do cigars, that cigar lounge. And I came back to Guyana. I got some cigars, and I built a wood hut. And I said, at Melanie, I will start to sell cigars and cognac. I started a bottle of Ciroc, a bottle of Hennessy, and a bottle of Black Label. So, and I had about 3 boxes of cigars. I said, I will sell this every Friday night and see where it goes. Or something on this. That was just after the elections in 2020. I had nothing to do, nothing much to do. I'd given up, not given up, I'd come out to practice for a bit just to campaign. Um, that was the sacrifice I made. Closed down the office, I campaigned in full time. So I had some time on my hand. And so it started from there because at the end of the day, I wanted to do the first cigar lounge in Guyana. You know, that was when I saw that I said, this is what I want business. But I've always had the business genes in me. My father sold cow milk. My father reared cows and sold cow milk. My grandfather started it. My grandfather Clifton Granum started it. My father Leslie Bond did it as well. And I was around Captain Gavaya. Most persons, I think, would remember when 2011 there was this commission inquiry and narcotics on a plane, and I was the head of the commission inquiry for Rima Airways. So I spent a lot of time around Captain Gavaya. So he and I would speak a lot about the values of the private sector and the role of the private sector, because I was a parliamentarian then, and he was telling me how politics and business go in tandem, and successful political parties need to respect the private sector and that kind of thing. So I've always had a love for the private sector. Most personally, my political mentor, the person who brought me in politics, Winston Murray, and he also loved the private sector. So I've always been around people who had an affinity, a fondness for the private sector and seeing the private sector grow. So my transition into becoming a businessman on a small scale was naturally, the instincts were there. And I just kept at it working hard. And a day like today, we employ over 14 persons. We revive the village of Melanie. We do so much charitable work every day, almost every week. We donate and help a lot of people around us. So it has been a journey. And as you say, our parents always told us become doctor and lawyer. But I now give a new commandment. I say to the young people, become entrepreneurs. My mom wanted me to become an attorney, and my grandmom as well. But I tell people it's so good to be self-employed. It's so good to own a business and to see a business grow and employ other people. You give 8 hours a day to an employer or to the government, the public sector, whatever sector. You give that to yourself and benefit your generations to come. So that's been my journey with business.
Yes, yes, yes. Before I go, Wendy, you ask Dr. Hines why there is always some who come on this platform to spew their ignorance. Wendy, what I've come to realize, that those on the other side of the political aisle, they fear the truth. And they jump up and down and so on, but they know where the truth comes from. There has always been a certain kind of Guyanese that those who are powerful are always afraid of. The linking of learning with culture. And the linking of culture and learning with the ability to communicate with ordinary people. There is something that we do that scare the daylights out of those who are in power. And so they come, they will write and they will say in public, no one listens to David Hines. No, he's a black nationalist. But then stupid. They're not stupid. They know where the country is. And they know the power of the country. You yourself, me and you can't in a Bible, and that's the reference, I'm making there. No, they understand what they're doing. They understand how important it is. They understand if David Hines is good. You see, they don't want me to talk to James Bond. James Bond they don't want James Bond to talk to me because they say James Bond is PNC. David Hines is talking PA. They mustn't talk. They want us to be. So when they see a poster with David Hines and James Bond talking, they realize the power of the people. They realize what we represent. Different generations, different maybe party, maybe different view of the same thing, but sometimes we don't understand our own power on our side. But the other side understands, so that's why they come, because they're afraid the power, they're afraid the symbolism of David Hines talking to James Bond and James Bond talking to David Hines. I'm just giving you all the little secret. That's what I'm here to make up. When you became a business person, did you feel that you had to have a certain kind of genes to be a business? You had to have a certain kind of, or did it, as you said, it came instinctively, right?
Yeah, instinctively.
Yeah.
Instinctively.
Right.
And the thing is, it's just wanting to grow. I mean, no one wants to remain at one place. So I started off with 3 boxes of cigars and 3 bottles. But then I said, this is not enough. I need to grow more. I started off in a little space. Then I went and developed another space, and I grew and I grew and I grew. So we're at a point now where we're still growing, we're still improving, we're employing more persons, trying to upgrade. So these are things that again, no one actually taught me. This is just natural. I think God-given instincts, just born from the experiences I would have seen around another person I've been around.
Yeah, James, I'm sure your generation, my generation, we came up politically in socialism, and your generation came a little bit later, but the socialism is still around, and we always heard that socialism and business don't go together. Business is a capitalist thing, and so on and so forth. But we have come to realize that economic wealth comes from engaging in business. It was so when our foreparents came out of enslavement, meaning African Guyanese. They engaged in business, the biggest business intervention that we have ever engaged in when they bought all those lands and turned them into village. I mean, it has not been replicated anywhere in the New World. Right here in Guyana, it happens. And it still remains our model for businesses. So there is nothing that says that because you come from a particular ethnic group that you can't do business and so forth. Business is about initiative, first of all. It's about courage. Second, because you got to steel yourself, as you know, for losses. Sometimes, you invest and it doesn't go right, and are you going to continue and so on. But more than that, it's about recognizing where is the need for a product or where there is need for a service. All right? And it has not been lost on me that your business in a place called Melanie Damishana, which has significance. and it is one of the communities that whenever I would go there and look at that community, I would always say shame on the descendants of Burnham for allowing that community to slide the way it has slid. And thank God that you've gone there and you are doing some good work in terms of providing service and the other work that you do. Tell me, and I made the point as I was introducing that you're an attorney, you're a political person, and you're a business person. And there are times the business person have to act differently from the political activists and so on, because we have to be real. We have to be real about the society we live in. Talk us through that. Talk us through that point that I'm making there.
Yeah, you already recognize the dichotomy between the politics and the business. And I think most persons on the opposition PNC coalition do not understand that dichotomy. You could become an activist. You could be active. You could make political statements. You could condemn the government. You could do a lot of stuff. But you have to know that when it comes to your business, politics does not get involved in that. You keep the politics completely out of it. So what I've done, and I've done it to some success. I don't want to pat myself on the shoulder. Much the charging of some personally coalition opposition is to keep politics out of my business. Everyone must feel welcome at my place of business. I don't care if you're a PPP, if you're a PNC, if you're a WPA, if you're Indian, black, white, Chinese, whatever. You are welcome at my place of business. And I must say it was disappointing when persons went and became very judgmental when my friend and brother Azruddin Mohammed came to my business place, when some other friends of mine came to my business place. They little didn't know that you come to my business place, Eddie Collins come to my business place, Walla Lawrence come to my business place. And there are a number of other persons from the government that come to my business place and support me. And I can't tell the PNC supporters don't come. So I can't tell PP supporters don't come. So persons want a James Bonnet attacks the government. And I'm saying I was never that person. And I can't be that person. The reason is there are other persons who could attack the government left, right, and center. What I do as person will see on my posts are certain issues I pronounce on. I use my platform to pronounce on. For example, the budget. I said clearly, the poor must not wait. We can't say we're taking care of the rich and taking care of the private sector and the poor must wait. I say give the private sector everything they want. I have no problems with that. But give the ordinary Guyanese what they want too. Just how the private sector and the foreign investors are not waiting on the goodies. Why must the poor, why must the public servants, why must the civil servants, why must the disciplinary services servants wait? We're giving duty frees left, right, and center. What about our teachers and nurses? Why must they wait? Or policemen? Why must they wait? So I made that pronouncement. So I've been making pronouncements on policy. And you could be a mature politician. You don't have to cost the government. As a matter of fact, I've reached out to the government on a number of issues. On education, I've reached out to the government and says, look, whenever you're ready to do this program of getting our children back in schools, I'm ready to be a part of it. That's as a politician. As a businessman, of course, I keep the politics out of it. So I try to maintain the separation. Um, and it's been working for me. And at the end of the day, you mentioned a particular point. We have to be real. I'm not a practicing attorney anymore. Law does not pay me. I made a case to some a reporter the other day when he said mentioned the word appeasement. I said I've never asked this government for anything. I've never asked the PP Civic for anything. I've never gone my cup in hand and says, look, give me this, give me that. Law does not pay me. All it pays me and pays my bills and take care of my family is my business. Now, what do you want? You want me to compromise my business on the sake of politics? As you know, Dr. Hines, we've spent more money in politics and given our times and resources to politics, little or no reward. But we have to be real. We have to be real. So I try to, as again, just show an example, is that a PNC person could do business, and I'm scheduled to join the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce because I feel that we need to have a different. You talk about diversity, and as I so enjoyed your opening. You spoke of diversity, and it's actually the layers in the Guyanese psyche, the layers in the Guyanese fabric, and we have not taken the time to understand what it means to be Guyanese. We could talk about all the things, one people, one nation, one destiny, one Guyana. We could talk about that all day. But unless we take our time to understand the fabric and the makeup of what it is comprise the Guyanese psyche, what makes us think, what makes us move, what makes us react in a particular way, only then can we begin to understand and melt our diversity or diverging views. We must first start from a position of education. We must know who we are as Guyanese. And when you do that, I've come to realization that I'm a Guyanese. My race don't matter. Yet I choose business or law, it doesn't matter. I'm entitled to be treated fairly in this country. So I could understand a Guyanese who is from a different political party or race. Just the other day, I made donations to Non-Prel, and the group receiving it, the person receiving it, were members of the PYO, members of the People's Progressive Party Civic Youth Arm. And I'm comfortable doing that as a businessman, as a Guyanese politician, as a lawyer. I'm comfortable doing that. And because I understand the diversity only adds. At the end of the day, they're seeing a PNC. This is a PNC member who's coming into our community and assisting and reaching out, who's crossing over. And those kind of messages, I think it bodes well for the picture of what the PNC should be, what the PNC should look like. And I think we've all struggled with rebranding how persons view the PNC. We say, yes, we are inclusive, whatever the case is. But I think our actions to show that we could reach over to the business sector. We could reach over to our Indian Guyanese brothers and sisters. We could reach over to the Amerindian communities. We could touch every single facet of Guyana as a PNC or as a coalition politician. I think that bodes well.
But and I hear you, James, and I think you're making some strong points. But you understand that given what has happened since the election, and the state of mind of the opposition supporters, why they would be uncomfortable with some of the things you do as a business person. You understand that?
Let me just be very, very frank with you.
Yeah.
I don't understand it. Why?
Okay.
Dr. Hines, you and I marched together. Persons may not know this. The march, the 2011, November 6th, December 6th March, you and I
And
were on that march
you
together.
got shot. You got
I was
shot that
shot.
month. Yeah.
I bled for the party. I've donated personally millions of dollars to the party. I've raised millions of dollars for the party. I've served the party faithfully. How is it all of a sudden now because I'm in business and I've never disowned the persons who I'm associated with now? I've never disowned them. If you check my page, you see myself and take critics for example. There's a photo of myself and critic before elections. Ashuddin Mohammed and his family has been my friends before election. Since 2011, I've seen these guys walk with these guys up the steps to give contributions to David Bridge when he was the leader of the opposition. The Jack Mohan brothers, you name it. I have seen and dealt with business, personally the business community before 2020. How all of a sudden now I'm a sellout? How all of a sudden now I'm a house slave? You made the point, you know. The point you made is that we are so quick to separate and castigate and put one side. We're impatient, we're not trying to understand and see, look, this guy has been with us. I know the wounds are fresh, but I would not lie to the Guyanese people, Dr. Hines. I will say this to them. And since then I said it. The elections are over. We have got to start rebuilding. I even drafted a plan called the Nehemiah Project. If you remember the story of Nehemiah in the Bible, I drafted a project called the Nehemiah Project of how we could start to rebuild the bridges that were broken as a result of the 2020 elections and to start rebuilding the coalition. That is what my mission is. But it can be you're going to now see me doing certain things that be actually repairing that breach. These are things, it might be small, it might be infinitesimal, but these are steps towards repairing the breach that people could not guide. The Guyanese public says, look, we could trust a PNC supporter, we could trust a PNC executive because their intent is nation building. They won't vote for you because you cost them, you know. They'll vote for you because they have confidence in your leadership. And that is where I try to portray as much as possible trust in a particular brand of leadership. PNC brand is a PNC brand of leadership, a PNC businessman brand of doing business. You could trust that brand. But don't tell me because we lost an election, because I'm not cussing the PVP Civic every single day, that somehow you can't understand me and you can't support me, you can't be there for me. I can never understand it. I mean, it's not my place because, as you know, my life still goes on. I take the criticisms, I take the cussing. I think our brother right here, Kamzos Kadaki Amsterdam, will be cussing me about the land story there at Millie, and I'm laughing. You know, I find it extremely funny. You know, he's trying to incite as if I'm selling the land out in Melanie. Why doesn't he call me and take time to understand what is it we're trying to do for North Melanie? You know, and this is not promises saying, oh, let us go do a revolving fund. I don't believe in talk, Dr. Hines. And person know me, I believe in action. You tell me you're going to talk about this and go beg. I don't do begging. You know, Mr. Muhammad never come and I never go and beg Mr. Muhammad and says, look, I need this and I gotta get this. I don't do that. The gentleman saw, he came to me and he says, James, I want to empower people. He came to me and he says, James, what could I do for sports and young people in Melanie? And I says, you could build the grounds. And he said, you know, you could give 2 bottom ball and 2 football, 2 cricket bat. I said, let's go build the ground for the people of Melanie. So there again, I can never understand. It is what it is. Maybe I'm not supposed to understand it, but I can never understand how you attack me, given my history of service to the PNC, to the coalition, to the Guyanese people. I can never understand it.
And talking about that history, let's go back to 2011. You were in
good year. That's a good year.
Before, but let's go back to 2011 because I think that was the pivotal moment. People remember 2015.
Yeah.
When we triumphed, but I want to go back to 2000 because I thought that 2011 is when things really changed, and you were extremely active in that campaign.
Yeah.
You and I where you were representing the PNC, I was representing the WPA, and we would meet at Congress Place at those
Yes,
meetings
yes,
of the Leadership Council as we
yeah.
planned that campaign. What? Talk us through some of the memories of that 2011 moment, because as you said, on the 5th of December, when
December 6th, yeah.
yes, December 6th, you, Eddie Collins, myself, Takumo Gunse, and others were leading a march, and we were pounced upon by the police on that day. But take us back to the importance of that 2011 moment for you as an individual political activist and for the movement that eventually
Excellent.
became the government.
I've never had this conversation with anyone publicly, but I'm glad it is with you. Like again, I'm they say your skin growing, my skin growing right now. I'm waxing with nostalgia right now. That moment, those moments, those memories were the best of my political life. We you mentioned Leadership Council, I can mention those names yourself, Takuma, Dr. Ryan, Peter Ramsaroop, you had Gerard Ramsaroop, you had a number of players from all over, you had The Gap, Robert Corbin, we all were in those rooms in Congress Place and trying to come up with a name for the coalition. And we got up new, and now we were working on the policies and the manifestos and that kind of thing. I've sat through those meetings, and I said it was a learning experience being around you. I'm so close to Dr. Rupert Ryan because of those days. I call him Pops. Think what I gotta go check him out. I do go check out the mic every now and then. So as a young politician, I got a glimpse of what it was, what happened before, and what the grouping was trying to do for the future. Because everyone brought their own experiences from before, and they were willing and able to set everything aside and to come up with a vehicle that would take Guyana forward together. And that was amazing. I mean, we don't give Robert Corbin enough credit. We don't give him enough credit, and I hope history remembers that from the inception of the JOPP to APNU, it was Robert Corbin who organized and mobilized the leaders and took us on the path to where we are today, that we could have laid the foundation for 2015. And wanting to, I think I was probably the youngest person in those meetings, the youngest person in those meetings, and the responsibility. I never felt as though person saw me as an equal, or someone who didn't deserve to be there. I was treated with the greatest of respect. My views were taken into consideration as a young politician. Those were absolutely the best days of my political career. I still remember going in the streets, into the communities, reaching, interacting with our Guyanese sisters and brothers. It was amazing, and I think it was those memories that kept me, even after 2015, when I was sidelined, so to speak. It still kept me going because I was saying, look, I work hard for this coalition, irrespective of whatever happened to me. At the end of the day, I've worked hard to see the coalition become a reality, and we could still do it again.
I'm very glad that you mentioned Robert Corbin. He wasn't in the cabinet after the victory in 2015. He didn't play a major role. I still don't understand what happened there. But there would have been no APNU and no coalition without the initiative of Robert Corbin. I'm glad
Correct.
I can say. Thanks to Robert Corbin, we got the APNU and we got the coalition and we got victory. He, along with Rupert Rupnarayan and Clive Thomas, are the ones who sat down originally and came up with that concept. And they're not always given the credit that they deserve for what we achieved. December 6th, tell us what happened that morning.
Well, we had organized the protest, a meeting, sorry. It was to be a public meeting at the Square of Revolution.
Yes.
We sent in our permit letters, our permission, our letters to get permission. We didn't get them. I went to break down and spoke, I think, to the commander at the time. And he says, well, we won't be giving you guys permission to hold this public meeting. So I came back to the Scribble Revolution, conveyed that message to yourself, Eddie Collins, Larry Nestor was there as well. And the decision was he will disperse. He will disperse. But of course, given what happened a few years back, you had to control people. And
Yeah.
one thing I learned is that elements are placed in those groupings, in those meetings, in those protests. There are people, I think, that are sent because they're not having our message. They come with their own message. You know, so we try to control the people and says, look, we will go 2 by 2 up Brickdam, Durban Street, and back into Congress Place. Don't let these people go running wrong and doing their own thing. Next thing they end up on Regent Street and a whole heap of craziness. You know, we try to avert that situation. So we were walking. The police came, of course, says, look, you can't be here. He says, cool, we're not going to hold a meeting. We're going to disperse. But you understand, I think Mr. Watts was there, Mr. Alvesworth was there. And we explained to them, you can't just have disperse because suppose now a faction goes down this particular road, go down Regent Street, some go down here. You don't know what they're going to do. Let us keep the people together and move together 2 by 2, hand in hand, back to Congress Place. Lo and behold, I don't know what instructions these guys get. We saw the riot squad come. And whilst we were walking, the footage is there. Royston Drake, you check Capital News and all these guys, you see us walking 2 by 2. They converge upon us. Chalmers Place, I think it is. Chalmers and Hatfield Street, you know. And they escalated things. Completely escalated things, you know. I tell people I thought I was going to die that day. I didn't know about rubber bullets and rubber pellets, and I didn't know anything about that sort. All I know is guys were pointing guns at me. I took off my glasses and made peace with my makeup. You know, I honestly thought I was going to die that day. I was shot about 30-something times. Dr. Collins was shot as well. And it was a horrific experience. You know, my son was traumatized. I was traumatized. I mean, I have always put on a brave face about it. But I've had nightmares about that incident because, as I said again, I honestly believed I was going to die. And over what? Because we were just trying to get the people peaceably back to Congress Place. Coincidentally, I spoke to Mr. Collins, Brigadier Collins, a few days ago, you know. I called him and reminded him of when we were back at Congress Place, a police vehicle come out, assaulted Brigadier Collins, toss him in, and I says, you know what, you want us? I'm jumping in this vehicle. And I think people understand why I get into the vehicles, the police vehicles, and I arrest myself most times, walk into the station, sit down on the bench. It's because I know the police are waiting for any opportunity to take you out. That's what I see over the years. And it's not only in Guyana. You see it all across the world. They're just waiting for some amount of resistance to take you out. So I don't give them the excuse. I jumped into the vehicle. I think one of them guys cuffed Brigadier Collins, tossed him into the vehicle. You know, it was a horrific experience. But we prevailed. We were able to get the majority in Parliament. And as a result, after that, we ended up winning the 2015 election. So it all laid the foundation. And we could get back to there. I believe we could get back to our winning ways.
Yeah. James, you know, the coalition held power from 2015 to 2020. And I think there's a lot that went on during that period that we are still to really unravel. But, you know, from your standpoint, what went wrong? if anything went wrong at all.
In 2020?
Yes, from 2015 to 2020, but yes, from 2020. What went wrong?
Let me just get it clear. You want me to say what went wrong during the years you were in power?
Yes, and
Good.
leading up to
I'll
2020
leave it
and
to 20
linking the
elections.
two.
Good, excellent,
Yes,
good.
yeah.
The first thing that went wrong, I think I said it on the day that we announced, former President Granger announced the persons who would be in his cabinet. I said I would have loved to see more young people there, but it is what it is, so I have to accept it. I have to support the government nonetheless. I believe we did not give enough young people the opportunity to serve. Um, what you found in place was a lackluster cabinet. A cabinet lacked the energy, except for a few ministers. There was no energy, And if you understood how we campaigned in 2011, in 2015, there was always an energy with the coalition. There was always that youthful energy with the
James,
coalition.
if I can interrupt you, this is a picture from that morning on the 6th.
Yes, yes, I
There I
see
was there
Mr. Watts there. I see you there.
talking to
Yes,
Mr. Watts and
yeah,
telling him that exactly because you came back, you gave us the message, um,
yes,
and there I was talking to the police and trying to explain to him what we are trying to do, exactly
yeah,
as you say, and that is one of my most cherished pictures.
yeah,
And I am glad that you're able to show it to the audience to say that what we are talking about is not fiction. That's there it is there. Yes,
yeah,
continue. Yeah.
yeah.
You're
So the
talking
first
about
thing I
the
think,
naming of the cabinet.
yes, we didn't have the energy. We didn't have the energy. You see, I always keep up a photo of Comrade Vala and Lawrence, in my office, in my boardroom we're in right now, and she's always been there. She was one of the persons who had the energy, the transformative energy. There were few and far. We could have done so much for Guyanese. I ain't talking about doing for Afro Guyanese and doing for Indo Guyanese. If we had the energy to touch every single community, and I give the criticism, um, and I don't want to bash former President David Granger. I mean, off record, I asked, how would history remember him? Who will defend his legacy? You know, let's take Georgetown, for example, the stronghold region 4, the inner communities. Um, how much were our presence felt in these communities? How much was our presence felt in Region 10, in the strongholds? How much were our presence felt in Region 6? In the PPP strongholds. We we had our term cut short, yes, but I believe the presence, the energy we could have brought to these communities by having our people in these communities, you know, um, it could have been done more if we had the people who the communities had a touch with, who they were seeing through the campaign, but instead we had persons who did nothing during the campaign, didn't see them during the campaign, but all of a sudden they're they're a minister, they're this or they're that. And I think the other shortcomings that even if you didn't use the young people as ministers, use them as your arms and legs. Even though I was an attorney, Minister Lawrence used to still have me represent her at certain functions. I can remember while she was at Social Security, I think the ministry is, on Lamhal, she was in ministry there. I represented her in Region 6 at a function conducted by Pandit Sugrim. And that's how I met Pandit Sugrim, and we're friends up to today. I could go to Region 6, I could go to Pandit Sugrim's school, his foundation, and interact. I actually contribute every year to his lease. I donate every year. I think he didn't come last year, this year he didn't come. But I make it a duty to donate to Pandit Sugrim's organization. So even if you're not using the young people let them still be the arms and legs in these communities. So that's the first thing. We lack the energy. The second thing is we did not have, in my estimation, a vision for development. When I say vision for development, I'm not talking about um, the schools, the 5Bs program. The vision for development would incorporate the private sector. We still kept the private sector at arm's length. Now, if you understand politics, politics and money go together. I'm sorry, I make no apology for that. Any government that is willing to stay in power must have a friend in the private sector. But we find ourselves, while it's a government, alienating the private sector because we think them as PPP. It doesn't work that way. Even if they're PPP, you still have to make sure that you will bring them and incorporate them into your policies, into your programs to transform Guyana. I can give an example. You see that Stabrook project? A man named Mr. Onkar, what's his last name? Onkar Ramsarup. Onkar Ramsarup had a project for Stabrook. He had the royal runaround to get approval on the AP and UFC. I think within 1 week, I see Onkar Ramsarup sign a MOU with Go Invest to develop the Stabrook market area. I've had so many complaints from basically from overseas and all over. Says, you know what? Our plans are were languishing on the AP and EFC. The Mandela project, not even the Lamaha project, the Lamaha beautification project. You know that was supposed to be happening on the AP and UFC. That was supposed to have been done there, where we could have utilized the private sector, create jobs. But no, we didn't want to do it. You know, but the PPP came into power and used the same plan and develop and brought in the private sector and create jobs. So our vision was a very, very myopic one, a very narrow one. You know, you can't talk about growing a country. You mentioned that, I said, I love your introduction, where you mentioned the 50, 51 and the 49. It's no way you could have 51 and then disregarding the views or the opinions or the contributions of the 49. I understand where you said in the power aspect, but think about the contribution aspect too. You know, so we did not, in my estimation, bring in more groupings, bring in more persons, not because they didn't look like us or they didn't sound like us. Bring them into the fold. I think Burnham was a master strategist with that. He would have brought them in, get their contributions and grown. At the end of the day, they can't say, you know what, you never friendly private sector. You never give me nothing. You never do nothing for me. So those are I could go on about the few things that went wrong in 2015. One thing I think we really dropped the ball on is the criminal justice system. You know, these petty offenses for narcotics. Um, then you had the 2 a.m. curfew. There's so much. These some small things that we allowed to become a talking point. You know, you still had persons being accosted by the police for these things, and there wasn't enough reform with the police force. We still have this 72 hours locking up people. There's so much that went on that we did not affect dramatically the small, the average Guyanese, which we could have fixed within those years. You didn't have the full term, but we could have done something, you know. But the 2020 elections, I would be very blunt with you from my standpoint, and I would take some of the blame for this. You could put the blame on me, you know. I don't think we went into these elections as an election machine. You know, I do not, when I look back, we made some mistakes. You know, our polling agents, we weren't vigilant enough. We weren't on our A game. You know, and I could take the blame for that. You know, I could say, I could apologize to the coalition supporters to say, look, maybe I could have done more. You know, I could have done more. I could have done better. To ensure I did my duty on election day to go check in some polling stations. You know, and what I saw on the East Coast, we didn't have representatives there. We didn't have polling agents there. And we weren't, in my estimation, we weren't at 100%. We weren't at our A game.
Do you think part of the problem is that we didn't understand the enormity of the opposition against us. And by that I mean, it was not just the PPP that the coalition was fighting against. It was the PPP and its friends in the private sector. It was external forces. Do you think we underestimated the enormity of the opposition against us?
Could I say this here? Could I
Yes,
say, you know, I'm blunt, man. I'm blunt as blunt could be. Amna Ali had information. Joseph Farmon, these guys had information as to our intelligence, as to what was happening, you know, since we the Charnas episode. And these guys refused to act on intelligence and information. You know, nobody could tell me at that stage that, you know what, we didn't have the support from the private sector, we didn't have the support from whoever. There was no genius to tell you that. That was the writing on the wall. You know, so there's not much underestimation. I think we were reckless. You know, you had this bravadas like you can't lose, you can't, you're going back in there again. And you know, it was obvious, and you had to prepare for those eventualities. That's what I'm saying. We were not on our A game, or we were not, because you can't be sitting, you can't be managing it. As I understand it, Dr. Hines, you can't be sitting in the seat of power. I mean, the program is speaking truth to power. How could you sit in the seat of power with the intelligence arms of the state at your disposal, and you don't know where your strengths and weaknesses are? That's crazy. And then if you understand where your strengths and weaknesses are due to the intelligence you would have received, you do not act on it. You do not plug these holes. I mean, it's so comical that Amnali Basil Williams there turned up to confront Alan Andalan on the day of election over ID cards. What foolishness is that? This is something that your intelligence should have. I mean, Dr. Hines, I look back at these elections, and I just want to say we could have done so much better. You know, we could have done so much better from the city, no confidence. From since that no confidence motion, since we had a whiff of it and we had the information, and these guys did absolutely nothing.
You said that we were not on our A game. It's been out almost 2 years since the government has been snatched away from the coalition. Have we been on our A game in opposition?
We're not even been on a D gear. And I'm just gonna say this. I didn't plan to like criticize or be negative to anybody, you know, but I feel very strongly that the opposition could do better. I'm not seeing a unified opposition. And that's the first thing. If you can't see a unified opposition and you're a member of that opposition, imagine what the outside is seeing. They think they think, and they say it, the opposition is weak. The opposition is in disarray. The opposition has no leader. Imagine, Dr. Hines, today is the 23rd of March, and there is no opposition leader in parliament. Just think about that. Joseph Harper stepped down about 3 weeks ago or so. Am I correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And up to a day like today, we do not have in parliament an opposition leader. I think the angle the opposition takes in terms of these conflagrations with the ruling party, the cuss outs, it doesn't win you votes. I'm going to be very blunt with you. Ask the opposition and any opposition member of parliament, how have we moved in terms of getting crossover votes, in terms of getting non-traditional votes, in terms of attracting the younger people? How much has the opposition done? We have local government elections coming up and national elections in a couple of years, in about 3 years. What groundwork are we putting in place to win the next election? So if you ask me how I see we performing miserably. And I do hope we get our act together. You know,
James, the United States, through the USAID report, has said that we need to have a more inclusive form of governance over the oil wealth. They were very frank. They called for power sharing. President Biden, in his message, called for what he calls economic inclusion, which is another form of saying power sharing. What are your thoughts on that?
excellent question, Dr. Hines. I'm a consortium nationalist. I believe in it is ideal for groupings, countries like Guyana, where there are different ethnicities and this melting pot of diverse cultures. Um, we believe consortium nationalists believe in building bridges, and power sharing inclusive government falls right squarely into that domain. Guyana does not belong to one group. Guyana doesn't belong to one party. But the political system that we've had allows for that. Allows for one grouping to dominate, allows for one party to dominate. It is impossible for the entire country to benefit economically from a system that is designed to benefit a single political party. I repeat, it is impossible for the entire country to benefit economically from a political system designed to benefit one grouping politically. For everyone to be part of this pie, we must share in the economic pie as well. It has to start there. We must create a legal framework. I mean, and I can be very honest, be very blunt with you. I do not expect the People's Progressive Party Civic to say, you know what, wake up one morning and President Ali says, oh, I'm going to decide on power sharing. I don't think that's how it happens. We have to push the conversation. And if we have the support of our friends overseas or our allies overseas, but we have to buy into it. We have to get our other Guyanese to buy into it, irrespective of race, because they have to understand that the PP Civic are not going to be in there forever. And when the PP Civic loses an election, you don't want to be on the outside looking in. You want to be comfortable. You want to believe that no matter which party is in power, the patrimony of the state will be yours. You'll be treated fairly. Your ability to win contracts, your ability to get a job, your ability to access a benefit from the state, they will remain intact no matter which party is in power. And I think power sharing, and it's not just first thing power sharing is one-dimensional. There are different facets to power sharing. And power sharing has worked well. Of course, any system has had its failures, but we could tweak it for the Guyanese experience, that we include the political opposition in everything that we do, from executive power to parliamentary power to the power on those boards, wherever it may from. We must find a way to include the 49%. We must. I think we owe it to ourselves if we're going to talk about one Guyana. You know, if you're going to use a statement as one Guyana, you owe it to yourself to say this is what one Guyana should represent. Now, we can't shut the opposition out from the oil and gas conference and give a flimsy excuse that there is no expert in the opposition on oil and gas. What fudgery is that? We must do better. So I believe wholly and solely in power sharing. My version of power sharing, be very frank with you, Um, it could start from a very small platform, a show of goodwill. Um, the comprising of boards write up, um, all the boards, all the constitutional bodies write up. The opposition gets a chance to choose. The parliamentary opposition also gets a chance to choose who its representatives will be, and not the executive handpicking the representatives for the opposition. I think the opposition submits its nominees, and then the executive must honor what the opposition submits. That's the first step. I also believe that the executive must make portions available within the executive for the opposition. So you have opposition members who are serving as ministers. You have members of opposition who are serving in the cabinet. I believe that is a starting point. At the end of the day, the 49 could look and see representation at the executive level and the legislative level. I think that is the beginning of a starting point of inclusionary governance. And my idea of what the power sharing should be.
Power sharing should be. James Bond speaking truth to power tonight, and he's really been speaking some truth to power. James, despite all the fallouts here and there, and so on, are you still committed to the People's National Congress and the cause of the opposition coalition?
Yes, yes, I am 100%. I may be shaky about the coalition, and rightly so, Dr. Hines. You know, you've had your concerns and your views, and I must say, your views, I subscribe to your views. I yield to the WPA's views on what the coalition should be. Um, you've spoken of the lack of voice within the coalition, the lack of the ability to make decisions and contribute to decisions within the coalition, um, of it being a dysfunctional coalition. And I want to see that 2011 coalition, that 2012 coalition, where we all sat at the table and we all decided and we all made points of views and came to a thing. But person should know that I am a member of the PNC, even though I'm not serving in any official form. And the fact that I'm not serving is not a matter of choice. It's not a matter of choice. I sense that the PNC does not feel it needs me, but I will not abandon the PNC. And even though I feel some of the coalition does not need me, I will not abandon the coalition. I still make my contributions to the PNC. Whenever they need me, I ensure I've never told them no. Not one single time of the PNC called upon me for anything that I said no. And that will always be the case. They don't need to appreciate my views or like my views or what I stand for. But I'm not the kind of person to go jumping and party hopping. I believe you lose your integrity in that way. To see me going and jump to the PPP and jump to the AFC and jump to WPA. As a man, I feel it's either in the house or out the house. I don't feel I should go hopping from party to party. For what reason? I want to contribute to my country, and I don't need to join a party to contribute it. If the PNC needs me, I'm there. If the AFC needs me, I'm there. If the WPA needs me, I'm there. If the government needs me, I'm there. If the government says, Mr. Bond, we're going to do this in your community, we're going to do that in your communities, and we need your support, you have my support, hands down. But I'm not going to become a member of the PP or a member of the WPA or a member of the LJP for what? Political? I don't. Power, as you know, we don't need position to hold power, to have power and influence. I don't need a title and a party for that. We will continue to do the work as politicians, as social activists, as philanthropists, as people who have the best interest of the people at heart. You've been doing that. I've been doing that without fail for a number of years.
Have you been in touch with Aubrey Norton since he's been elected?
No, no.
Do you
No, I
think
haven't.
he, do you think as a leader he could help to pull the PNC out of the malaise that it has found itself in?
Any leader would have done that.
Mhm.
The place we were in after the elections, anybody. What Aubrey has is the strong point that Aubrey has is that he's an organizer. You
Mhm.
know, himself, he comes from that Corbin cloth. You know, they're good at organizing. And I think I'd advise the members of the People's National Congress Reform who were directly under his stewardship to follow his lead. Because one of the things you need in a political uh, matrix is organization. He may not be able to mobilize at this juncture, but the mobilization will only come as a result of the organization.
Mhm.
So we have to understand his qualities and his strengths. He may not appeal to everybody, he may not appeal to the business community, and he may not appeal to this body and that body, but he needs to surround himself with people who could appeal to them.
Mhm.
And that would be my advice to him. You don't have to be everything, you know. You don't have to be this almighty leader who touches it and it turns to gold and people faint at your presence. Surround yourself with the best and the brightest. And you mentioned me going to school. Much better. I also went to St. Joseph's High. And at President's College, I was surrounded by the best and the brightest in the country. Romy Singh, Ronald Ross, you know, Kester Allen Morris, you know, these guys were brilliant. And that is what leaders need to do. Everybody wants to hear smart around them. Yeah, come on, you're doing good, you're doing this, but
Mhm.
I will not.
You
If I were a leader, I think a few years from now, I may run for leadership with the PNC again. I'd bring the best and the brightest.
James, you are still relatively young, and you are, as you said earlier in the interview, that you felt that we needed more youthful energy when we were in office. Are there any young people you see coming through the ranks now that you think really could be that kind of material that we need to push forward?
Yeah, they got a lot of youngsters. They got a lot of youngsters who I believe got that character. I look at character. You know,
Uh, Anyone that you care to, or any two or
I
three that
I
you
could
care?
name drop all day. You know, and some persons may take offense because I didn't mention their names.
Right,
You
right,
know,
right.
but I know of young people that are very passionate about politics. You know, they're very passionate about the coalition and where it needs to go. And I think they have the touch to take us forward. There are a lot of young people. And a lot of them are my close friends. I might mention the name and I forget the name, and I don't want to be that
Right,
procretary,
right. I understand.
you
I
know.
understand.
So,
I understand.
but there are
You,
a lot of youngsters.
you know,
And I think, but the thing is, um, the leader of the PNC, Albert Norton, he has done something that is good too. If you look at the people around him, they're young people. I think the chairman, Sharon Holder, a young man, Gita Chandan, my sister, a young woman, Fayaz Morsaleen, the treasurer, another young man, Elizabeth Niles Williams, the vice chair, another young woman, you know, Vince Roy Jordan, another young man from Region 5 as a vice chairman. So he's surrounded himself with young people. And even though they may not be the best and the brightest, they could be trained. They're at that age where you could train them. And in a few years' time, they could be exceptional leaders. You know, you don't judge them now, but you see them looking now, you don't think they're of that metal. Oh,
mhm.
they can't compare to Jack Dio. But Jack, you took years before he got to where he is. You
Yeah.
know? So give them that space to grow. And I think, again, Comrade Lawrence in 2011 at the Congress of 2011 or 12 had proposed for a mentorship program, a mentorship and succession program within the PNC.
Yeah.
And they sat on that, they never implemented it. So I hope now we find, and I'm gonna say this here, and I'm gonna talk a bit of race right now, Dr. Hines.
That's okay.
Our black people, we don't like to give to the young the knowledge, and that's not how it should be. We don't want to give them we don't want to give them our knowledge. We want to die before they get the inheritance. We don't want to trust them with our wealth. We want to hold on to everything. Us, or the elder black folk, we got to learn to give to the next generation. Impart your knowledge, impart your wisdom, give them the start. Yeah, we all know you work hard for your own, and oh, you got to not work hard for your own. And if you don't work hard for you, you won't cherish it, you won't love it. I don't know about that. You just have to train the youngsters how to be responsible with their inheritance. You know, so in the culture that I'm speaking, the political culture I'm speaking in, we have a lot of these leaders in the past. They hold on to everything. They don't want to lose. They don't want to share. They want to give. They want to pass over to the young generation. That's why you find us way behind.
James, it is no secret that you are close to former chairman Valda Lawrence, and many people thought that she would have been part of the race for the leader of the party and could have. She had a very strong chance of becoming the leader. She opted not to run. Um, and she has generally, at least as far as the public is concerned, she has not been speaking a lot and so on. Is she still active in the
Very
party?
much so.
Huh?
Very much so. Very much so. I think I don't want to say if, but I will say it, if she had run, she would have won. I make no bones about that. If she had run, if she had did run for leader, she would have won. Um, but Carmen Norton did a very good job in making her one of his advisors. She has an office in Congress Place, and so she has. She should respect. She should respect something that wasn't. She didn't get that respect under the previous um, leaders. Who, anyways, yes, she's being treated with respect, with dignity, and I think she's in a great place. She's, of course, passing her knowledge on to the younger generation of politicians. That's a good thing.
I'm reading some of the comments here on the board, and some people are fulsome in their support of the stances you've taken. Some people are quite critical. As I said, we are part of a larger diversity of opinion, diversity of views, and you've been in politics long enough to roll with the punches. Um, uh, somebody saying that I like your frankness, and that's another opinion, because there are people who may not agree with you, but they agree with your right and the frankness with you. And our our people, especially our party diehards, have not always been comfortable with self-criticism. We are good. We always want to hear criticism of the other, but not criticism of ourselves. And I happen to believe that that has been one of our weaknesses on our side of the aisle. That I think we are strengthened by self-criticism. I'm criticizing you, as Dr. King said to America. I'm criticizing you because I love you. I'm not criticizing you because I hate you. I want you to be stronger. I'm criticizing you out of love, right? And I think it's something that we have to develop a little bit more on our side of the political. And sometimes I think, and I want to get your comment on this, we feel that the way we act must be determined by the way the other side act, and not be determined by our own motion. Comment on that.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've heard that too. The PP did this, so we gotta do this. The PP did that, so we gotta do that.
And we can't criticize our own because the PPP
Don't,
don't
yeah, we
use it.
don't. Everything for them is in house and that kind of thing. To each his own. Um, I want to say very, very. I grew up in a house. My dad, I can't come on this program and not say that my father, Leslie Bond, Reverend Leslie Bond, my mom, Grace Bond, Nurse Grace Bond, are the persons who molded me the way that I am. My father would punish me, and after he would punish me, he beat me, he would call me and say, "You love your father?" "Yes, daddy." "You're breaking your father?" "No, daddy." You know, so even though he punish, he makes sure that you know what, you are not afraid of him. And you make a very, very quick our in our political arena, we don't like to hear an opposing view. But in law, we normally look at the dissenting judgments. We tend to look at the dissenting judgments to see what this one judge settles there from the others and to see whether or not there elements that we could take away from it. And sometimes the descending judgment, when it reaches the higher court, is the judgment, the view that prevails. So we have got to find a way to bring on board the dissenting views. It doesn't mean that I hate you, you know. It doesn't mean that I have no regard for you, but it's just a different posture. And I believe within the politics that we are, the PP Civic is not the barometer of excellence. That's the first thing we must realize. They're not the barometer of excellence. They make mistakes. They make tremendous mistakes. So we do not have to do everything that they're doing. We don't have to follow their playbook. We must be in touch with the Guyanese people. I honestly believe we need politicians that are in the ground. Now, I've been in Melanie as a businessman for a number of years, and the only politician that I see is Chairman Daniel Siram. I've never seen the member of parliament. I've never seen the councillors. I see, I've seen Daniel Siram twice. You know, and I live in an Indian. I live in two Indian communities. I live in Nondrel. I live in Good Hope. I've never seen an opposition politician. You hear me? What I'm telling you? I've never seen an opposition politician. So what that tells me is, I know whose playbook we're borrowing from. We have got to get into the communities, hear what they're saying, and get our own playbook based on the views of our people. We've got to do that. And when you do that, you're going to see we're going to have a totally different playbook for the PP Civic, and you're going to win the hearts and minds of the Guyanese people. Because every day I see it, the PP Civic, they're moving away from the grassroots. They're moving away from the grassroots. A lot of people do not feel they could, and I don't want to give advice to the people because they will go and correct their mistakes. You know, I shouldn't even say this, but I will say it. When you move around this country, there are fewer and fewer people who have access to the PPP. There are few people who are getting jobs under the PPP. There are few people who are getting their needs met on the PPP. And they will go fix it. They will say, no, something James Bond probably making some sense. Let's go correct this. But we in the opposition need to go there first to the Guyanese people. We don't have to wait. What are we waiting for? To get back in power to go to these people? Go now. Go now and take the people's concerns to the PPP. And when they fix it, you take the credit. That's how I see it happening to get back this power, you know. To get there, you have to do the work. You can't be an armchair politician. You got to go into the communities, know every person, every street, know their complaints, and let the state, use the PPP to fix the problems, and you take the credit. Because you could see, you know what? It's me highlighted this problem to the Minister for Housing and the Minister for this and Minister that, and as a result, they went and they did it. It is my advocacy that did it. So that's my simple bit on it.
But just on the speak truth to power tonight, and certainly you did. We've touched on a range of subjects. I'm glad I invited you, and I'm glad you accepted the invitation to come on. The zone here is always a zone of sharing, a zone of learning, and a zone of empowering. We respect diversity. We are not a monolith, and thank God we are not. Our lives would have been so boring if everyone thought the same way about the same thing. And I'm glad you came on. You may have said some things that some people may have disagreed with. They've made them uncomfortable. But at the end of the day, it is whether, in fact, we want to hold our hands and our hearts together and to commit ourselves first to our political partisan persuasion, but ultimately to a Guyana that is tenanted by all its people, and that we all, regardless of race, of creed, of social class, of religious persuasion, that we can look at Guyana and say that this is our homeland and we're proud of it. I still think you have a big contribution to make. And if tonight's appearance is anything, I hope it is the beginning of a more directed and intentional involvement on your part. And you will see me shortly. Thanks for coming on.
Dr. Hines, I must say it's a pleasure to reconnect this way with you. I know we've reconnected different ways, but it's great to have to share this platform with you. And I think it bodes well for Guyana. As you said, our diversity is critical. And I really appreciate have being on this program of sharing my views. Whether persons like it or not, it's of no moment to me. And I will still hold my views. I will still change my views. But at the end of the day, I want to see. This is my dream for Guyana. As I said it, I have kids. I have sons. I have three biological sons, two adopted daughters, and two dogs. And I say I will never ever break up Guyana because I want my children to live in a Guyana in which they feel safe, in which they feel comfortable. They must not be discriminated against because they look different. So I'm all for promoting a love for our people, irrespective of race, religion, or political affiliation. We must find that way, find that path in which we could walk hand in hand together. Must. That is my mission. And thanks for having me here, Dr. Hines, to share my views and share my heart with your viewers. Thank you. God bless you, man.
Thank you very much, James, and thank you, the audience, for being a wonderful audience. You've expressed your views, you've expressed your disagreements, but you've done so in a comradely manner, and that's what we're all about. I want to thank all those who have made contributions to Keep Politics 101 on the air here on Channel 9 on Broadcast TV here in Guyana. You've been such a wonderful audience, and those of you who've contributed. Again, I say thanks. You know who you are. Some of you have connected to me directly. In fact, all of you have connected to me directly, and I've expressed my thanks to you. And I hope tonight's interview would have at least caused us to reflect a little bit more on our disagreements as a political persuasion, as a political bloc in our country, and how we can use those disagreements not to our disadvantage. The best interviews for me is not the ones I do with a Kumo or a Clive Thomas, who are my comrades. I've known them for years. But to others who belong to other parties in the opposition, because I'm speaking to people who I don't necessarily share the same political views or share the same angle of the political views. And so therefore, it is not politics. The test of political mettle is not how you're able to get along with friends and comrades, but how you're able to get along with people who are not necessarily your friends or comrades, but you share the same objective. Good night. I'm gone. I think I'm going to Grenada now to talk a little bit there about the impact of the invasion of Ukraine on the Caribbean and so forth. So I have to switch gears from Guyana to the Caribbean. And so we continue to do our thing.
Please help keep Politics 101 on social media and broadcast television. If you are in North America, please donate via Cash App or PayPal.
If you are in Guyana and the Caribbean and don't have access to Cash App and PayPal, email your pledge to dhines6106@aol.com and we will direct you how to get your donation to us. Thank you in advance for your donation.